and so thank you for being here. Want to take a look at the agenda. We do have one change. Larson, can you discuss the change?
Yeah, we're going to move item 3 just up to number 2, and then because the meat of our presentation today is from Mr. Ryswick. So we're going to start this meeting by asking Mr. Caldwell to give us a quick update on Andrew Johnson Building, and if you would, I think you could do the podium, right? That's all under.
Do we have any more additions to the agenda, or are we set with this?
Everybody good with that?
Yes. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Mr. Caldwell.
Good afternoon. Just briefly, as you all are probably aware, some of you are aware, we have delayed approving the sale of the AJ building, this building, for a few months now on Commission's agenda. So we try to our goal is to mirror that at the same time wherever the move happens to be, it correlates with that. And so what we've done is continued to delay it. We've actually just taken it off the agenda for December. That way it doesn't have to continuously be delayed, and we'll just add it back once we get to a spot to where we're comfortable. So what we're doing currently is we're working through some issues. There were some title issues that Matt Myers had found, and we're working with B&A, who was the successful bidder for this facility, to make sure that those title issues are worked out and are okay. And then we're continuing to look at options as where those places would be to relocate the operations that are in this building, and where that would eventually go, and how that looks from a standpoint of operations and cost and so on and so forth. So basically, I don't know how this got on the agenda, but just give you an overview. That's where we are. We continue to evaluate, and eventually we'll get to a point to where it will be brought, the sale of the building will be brought to commission, and then the other pieces will be brought before both committees, being the Board of Education and County Commission, once we get both things worked out. So
I know this is a complicated process and a lot of moving parts and a lot of people at the table, but in general, would you say things are continuing to move forward in a productive way, and we hope that 2019 will be...
yeah, so definitely positive. I think it is productive, and I mean, I don't go too far, but like in the last, one thing that's changed in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been having conversations with somebody else who would maybe like to join us in one of the options that's on the table, which would make, from a collaboration standpoint, makes a lot of sense. And it just makes it, if that ever comes to fruition, you'll see what I'm talking about. It makes it much more enticing. And so that's happened. And so I'm actually supposed to get a phone call today. And so see where that goes. But I think that it's just, when you see all the options, and eventually that will happen. So there's one option. I mean, there's really one option, and then everything else kind of is below that, because from a financial standpoint, it's superior. I mean, there's no doubt. And so,
And that'll happen in January, roughly, or you think?
that's our hope. I would tell you that we continue to spit in the paper. So we continue to have attorneys talking and working through things, and so there's the 3 or 4 points that are sticking points that we try to work through, and then we know that tenant was okay with the sub-tenant that we've been talking to. So, questions, comments?
I just hope that as we move forward, that we have in writing the needs assessment of what the school system needs. Okay, and as we begin to look long-term, that those assessments take into part some of the outstanding services that are not consolidated, that needs to be consolidated at this point. And it's not just the administrative function that we're looking at, but we're looking at an entire assessment some of those moving parts that are on Central, that are on Magnolia, that can be consolidated at this point. And I think the conversation is not just about the administrative functions in this building, but a total assessment of where we are now, especially when we're dealing with the issue of cost associated with that we take those into account.
So let me say this,
Okay.
just more of a superintendent issue, but our consultants have worked with Superintendent Thomas and Russ Oakes as far as needs assessment, as far as administrative office space, and so we have that and program that in to know what those needs are. You mentioned Central and Magnolia. We have continued to take a phased approach, and so phase one being AJ, phase two would be Central. I mean, we've had some conversations about consolidating all of maintenance in one location, where that may be and where that be located. But that would probably be phase two or phase three. So, but I think you got to look at this as a multi-phased approach, with phase one being administrative as it relates to the AJ building.
Oh, and I agree, but your phased approach as we move forward, have the conversation with the community, because they may have additional ideas and supports that we need to take into consideration as we look to do this.
There's no doubt that we have some property, as it relates to the schools, on the corner of Hall of Fame and Magnolia, where maintenance is, that the city has an interest in as they try to get to the Magnolia Corridor and redevelop that area. And so I think you'll look to see some collaboration between schools, county, and city, as we may look to find a central location to have a central maintenance department.
Chris, this has been a long, drawn-out process. It's a very integrated process and details involved. I hope that the administration and Chairman Nystrom will not dump this on us in 1 month, that we as commission can have several workshops to go over this, because it is rather complicated.
We thought about 10 days. I'm kidding. So what? So
10 minutes before dinner.
yeah, I think what you will see is we have talked about having even some joint sessions with commission and school board to go over this. That way we can have everybody who has worked on this project in a room at one time to go through this process, and let I say experts, as far as people who have worked on this from a contractual standpoint, show you what we went through. And maybe not even, I don't know if we want to get into the point of saying, yeah, so-and-so offered this property and this wasn't a good deal for us. I don't know if we want to go that far, but just to maybe black out some locations just to show you how the numbers work, because it is kind of unique, and we hear a lot about Easttown, and so that's there. So it's just things like that.
The timing will be what the timing is based upon the work that you're doing, and we don't want to
No,
delay anything. But just as a note, we have a joint education committee meeting on February 20th. And if for some reason the timing lined up that we could invite the school board and commission to come and join us for a joint presentation, that might be a good sort of marker to look and land on, because we don't have an agenda item set yet for February. So just keep that in mind.
Sure.
If it were to work out, that'd be great.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us today. Appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So next, we're going to have the presentation on district priorities. Is that, Josh, you ready? Oh, Superintendent Thomas? Oh, wonderful, even.
But John's gonna have to walk of the load.
Okay.
Let me just do a little bit of intro for y'all. First of all, good afternoon too, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to be in front of you this afternoon and talk about Knox County schools and our future and our kids and just the all of Knox County in terms of the economic development. We feel like we've got a plan, and then John's going to talk more about that. But we're working right now on our strategic plan, which the board decided we would look at these 3 priorities and build a strategic plan around increasing student achievement, building a positive culture, and eliminating disparities. And Knox Leads that we'll be talking about fits into that. We think that'll take us a long way in terms of where we need to be and want to be in terms of our of Knox County schools and our community, because it's broader than Knox County schools. It's Knox County and Knoxville and our whole community. So Knox Leads is really three components of that. It's Knox Reads, it's Knox Advances, and Knox Supports. And let me just kind of tell you the whys, and then on those briefly, and then let John go. But the state has a goal of 75% of third graders reading on grade level by 2025. Where we are right now, we tested about 4,500 students last year, so approximately 39% of those students were proficient when they left the third grade according to the reading proficiency. So put that in numbers for you, that's 1,755 students out of 4,500, which means 2,745 students were not proficient in reading. So, and I say that we've got a great school system, but we want to work harder every day to be a greater school system than where we are, because I see our principals and our teachers working extremely hard every day. And there's some reasons that factor in to those numbers, I believe. When you look at poverty, we know that students that grow up in poverty are at a disadvantage right from the onset. There was a study done by Stanford, talked about students that grow up in poverty, families of poverty versus wealth. There's a 30 million word gap by the age of 3 for students who grow up in poverty versus those that grow up in the wealthiest families. So we can't necessarily control poverty. Our goal is to any child who grows up in poverty, here's your ticket to get out of poverty when you get your education. So that's part of the reason we contend with a situation like that. So in talking about poverty, there's 46 of our 88 schools who are community eligibility schools, which means all the students eat free breakfast and lunch. What does that mean in numbers? That's about 52% of our schools, the 46 schools. So 28% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and that's a state number because they look at direct certification. We probably actually have more students who are economically disadvantaged than that, but that's roughly 17,000 students, or 3 out of every 10 students who grow up in families where they're economically disadvantaged. So what do we want to do about that? Well, I think once we get the kids wherever they are, we get them and we take them as far as we can. We do a really good job, I believe. We saw our numbers go up just a little bit when you look at 3 through 5 testing. It wasn't much of an increase, but it was a 1%. But we had some schools who made more progress than that. So we looked at our cusp schools from last year, the schools that were at the bottom, if you will, and we put some resources into those schools to try to improve our reading proficiency. But again, back to numbers, if we want to reach the goal of 75%, that's we've had 228 third grade classrooms. So if we could get one student out of every classroom each of the next several years proficient in reading, we're going to be at the goal. And if we're 75%, we're ahead of everybody. Not necessarily looking at being ahead of everybody, just looking at what's best for every one of our children. So if I'm a parent, and we've got a message behind all this, but if I'm a parent, I want that one child to be my child. So what I'm hopeful for is that a lot of parents will feel that way, and we'll have more than one child in each third grade classroom. So reading is the key. School readiness starts at birth. We don't have them at birth. We don't get them until they're 5 or 6 years old. So there's a lot that goes on before we get them, and we want to partner with some of the folks that in this community, in our community, that can help us to reach families and kids who fall into that category. So that takes care of the Knox Reads part. Literacy is the key to success. So we can talk about math, we can talk about science, we can talk about language arts. But reading is the key. So we want to work more. We want to work smarter, and we want to work harder too in terms of what we're doing. And John will talk about some of the things that we are doing. The Knox Advances part of Knox Leads talk about high school graduation and ready graduates. Our high school graduation rate that's going to come out on the report card for 2017 was 89%. Which is good. We dropped a little bit. We were at 90%, but we're 89. I think this past year we saw that go up just a little bit. But the state looks at ready graduates. So we want the diploma to mean what we say it means. And when you look at a ready graduate, the state determined that by an ACT score for that particular year. So a 21 on the ACT score meant that you were a ready graduate for that year. Well, we only had 44% of our students to to meet that benchmark at 21 on the ACT. So out of roughly 4,000 students, 1,760 students would qualify as a ready graduate. So that means almost 56% of the students that graduated without that 21, or 2,240 students roughly, were not considered ready graduates. Now, again, I want to say that our graduating class last year was awarded $158.6 million worth of scholarships. So I don't want to make it sound like Knox County, if you come to Knox County, you're not getting a great education, because you are, but we want to do better. So, and next year the state is looking at ready graduates a little differently. It's more than just the ACT score. It's a combination, or can be a combination, of early post-secondary opportunities, and John will talk about that a little bit. It also can be industry certifications. It also can be a certain score on the military tests that are given. So all those will qualify you, the right combination would qualify you to be a ready graduate, not just an ACT score. So 4 out of every 10 graduating seniors were not college career ready by that definition. So to meet our goal, we would want to get 12 additional students at every high school to meet that goal. And again, it doesn't sound unreasonable to make. We don't want to ignore any student, but we want to try to make sure we can get 12 students at each high school in a graduating class qualified to be ready graduates. So to talk about Knox supports a little bit, talk about chronic absenteeism. The state looks at us in terms of chronic absenteeism. They look at all the districts that way. What does that mean? If a student is absent 10% of the year, if they're enrolled at the beginning, and at the end for us that would be 17 days. So if you miss 17 days or more, then you're chronically absent. Well, our attendance rate as a district is roughly about 95%. So you say, well, gosh, 95% attendance rate, you must be pretty good, which I think we are. But break that down further and looking at those absences, we have 9,700 students, almost 10,000 students who are chronically absent. So we have to do something about that. And that's why we want to make sure that we develop a better partnership with some of these other agencies that can help us with the Knox Reads, the Knox Advances, and then also chronic absenteeism. And again, poverty factors into that. Kids grow up in poverty are 2 to 3 times more likely to miss or to be chronically absent. There's some other factors when you look at what's going on, the opioid epidemic, drug-dependent babies. There were, in 2013, 99 drug-dependent babies were born in Knox County. Well, those are kindergarten kids today. And that's not to say that every one of them have a problem, but there are more challenges when the kids that are born into drug dependency in school. So behavioral issues, academic issues, and that sort of thing. In addition to that, and adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs, as they're called. When kids come to school, what an ACE is, and I'll just give you some examples. It could be physical abuse or neglect in the home. It could be emotional abuse or neglect in the home. It could be sexual abuse. It could be violence in the home. It could be substance abuse, household mental illness, parent separation, divorce, incarcerated household member, a death in the family. All those are adverse childhood experiences, and you'll see by the video we show that impacts brain development. And the more of those you have, the more impactful that is on brain development. So those are very real issues, and we have kids come to school with multiple examples of those issues. So, and again, the more you have, more of those experiences, adverse experiences you have, the more impact on brain development and that negative stress. So, and suicide. Suicide's another issue that, not just a Knox County Schools issue, but it's a nationwide issue, and we want to make sure that we have the resources in our schools and with our partnerships that we can provide the emotional and mental kinds of things that need to be done for kids so that we can help all of our kids be successful. So probably took a little bit longer than I needed to get you into this, but just to give you some of the whys behind Knox Leads, which would include Knox Reads, Knox Advances, and Knox Supports. So, John, if you'll come up, and I'll turn it over to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, committee, for letting us come speak. So I'm going to kind of walk through some of the presentation. There'll be some video clips in there too. So You don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. But I think what you'll see today, and playing off what Mr. Thomas said, they are the right priorities for us. I think trying to eliminate disparities, trying to increase academic achievement, and also to create a positive culture. That's why a school system exists. And I think what the staff appreciates so much is these are the right focus. Sometimes we can expand kind of beyond what a school does, and it's easy to, with budgets that we have and folks that we have, to kind of get overextended. So I kind of think you'll see things today and kind of go, well, that makes sense, hopefully, when you hear this. You're not going to hear a lot of brand new things that are kind of outrageous ideas or staking ground somewhere where we should or should not. But I think what you're going to see is us kind of laser focus in on things that we want to move, and not just for Knox County schools. As you'll notice on the first slide there, it says Knox leads, ensuring the economic vitality for Knox County's future. What we want to do through this movement is is position the school system in our area of expertise as a greater part of the community. We're going to talk about if Knoxville wants to lead, if Knox County wants to lead, and we're close in lots of areas, but if we want to lead the state in some of these areas, we're going to have to position ourselves as a school system in a couple ways. One, that we don't have the solution to everything, but we're going to have to partner and want to partner with the rest of the community at large. There are areas of expertise other folks have that really help us, and vice versa. So I think it's a little bit of a different posture and stance than maybe we've taken in the past as a collective part of the community to solve some of these things. So I'll jump in. Oops. As Mr. Thomas mentioned, there we go. As Mr. Thomas mentioned, we are doing really well as a school system. So I know there are a lot of numbers in there, and you can kind of hear different things in some of those numbers. But a lot of people want to be Knox County. If you look at us across the state, which is a great place, it's a great place to be. But what I like about this is we're not settled with just being a good school system. We want to lead the state in these areas. So back to Knox County can be that. We rank 28th out of the 144 school districts in the number of third graders reading on grade level or above grade level. So that number of 39% doesn't sound great, but when you look at the fact that this puts us ahead of Nashville, Chattanooga, Memphis, even you get into like Murfreesboro, some areas like that. As far as metropolitans, we are by far the highest performing and have been for a long period of time. So as Mr. Thomas said, we celebrate our teachers and the work that they do, our principals and the work that they do, because that's making a difference. We rank 19th out of the 95 districts as far as graduation rate, hovering right there around 90%. Been consistent with that. The state's up in the game, and they should, as you'll see why that's important for economic vitality when we talk about ready graduates in a second. 44.2% of the district's graduating seniors have hit that benchmark. And so this is a good thing. So just getting a diploma is not enough anymore to be successful, but to be a ready graduate for career and for college, either of those choices. And I think you'll see our focus is not just a college focus, but also a career focus when you see some of the things. So we're doing extremely well. It would be easy to kind of rest at this point, but what we realize is that we can be the best. So what this whole Knox Leads initiative from the school system is, it's a greater call to the community. And the three areas that you see listed there in those bullet points, those are not just school issues, those are community issues. I think we haven't always been as open to want to partner in some of those areas. So again, I think this is a new day for us to do that. If we do, I think there'd be ways we can consolidate some dollars, consolidate some staff, and consolidate some function to make these things happen. One is, as Mr. Thomas has talked about, is increasing literacy rates. He talked a lot about that birth to kindergarten pipeline. That's not a lane that we're really in. Our approach can't be that we're just going to spend $20 million and build that lane. That's not smart for us. That's not great in our budget requests and those sorts of things. But what we do know is there are plenty. We were in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and we had one of the pastors say, I have a lot of daycares in my church, and we want to partner with them. We want to sit with them and say, where we are strong is we're strong in teaching folks how to read. That's our area of expertise. We don't want to be the daycare. We want to be the folks who can help their daycare people be better educated in how to start an early literacy and doing those things. So it's going to be important for us to look for places where this is already happening and partner as opposed to asking for dollars to create a new avenue to get there. You'll see ready graduates prepared to make contributions to our community. They'll show a short video in a minute that will speak to that better than I will. And then, as Mr. Thomas talked about, poverty, mental health, and addictions. We know those are things that are, again, not just school issues, but issues to our greater community that we can't solve alone. Mr. Thomas talked about this as well. when you look at 75% over, this will get into our Knox Reads initiative, 75% of third graders reading at or above grade level. 6 out of 10 students currently are not doing that. And again, remember, we're one of the leaders in the state with that as we continue to bring economic vitality to the state. But if one additional third grader per classroom over the next 7 years gets there and we hold steady where we are now and continue to grow, we can do that. And Mr. Thomas is right. If we get to 75%, we won't just lead the state, we'll be leaders in the nation. But it's very manageable. We could get this done. I'm going to let some video speak for it that will tell the story, so we'll talk through that. This next slide, I think, will take us there to Knox Reads. This will give an idea of those.
Imagine, for a moment, if you couldn't read, if everyday text made no sense to you. Literacy matters. And if that didn't convince you, allow us to spell it out for you. L is for low literacy. Low literacy's effects cost the U.S. at least $225 billion each year in non-productivity in the workforce, crime, and loss of tax revenue due to unemployment. I is for incarceration. More than 65% of all state and federal correction inmates can be classified as low literate. T is for Tennessee. The state of Tennessee has a goal for 75% of its third grade students to be reading at or above grade level by the year 2025. E is for economically disadvantaged. 43% of adults with the lowest literacy rates in the United States live in poverty. R is for reading levels. Children whose parents have low literacy rates have a 72% chance of being at the lowest reading levels themselves. A is for access. 61% of children from low-income backgrounds have no children's books at home. C is for committed. Knox County Schools is committed to increasing reading proficiency across the district. Y is for you. It will take the entire community to move Knox County Schools third graders from 39% on track and mastery to 75% by the year 2025.
So you see from some of the facts there that again, there is an impact that literacy and early literacy has on the community. Part of these that we're showing you as well are so that you can see some of these videos, what our next steps in some of these things are going to be good to go to different organizations to present these things, to share this information, and we have some folks targeted that we want to have those conversations with. So what we're looking to is imagine, here's the things that we want to try to accomplish through Knox Reads. We want to continue to do the work that we do in the school and are doing with our teachers and with our staff, but also we want to build a literacy support pipeline from birth to kindergarten in every Knox County community. Want our families, want to be able to teach our families to support and train basic literacy skills to confidently help them with their children. What we see lots of times, I don't know any parent that doesn't want better for their student. Again, where we have an area of expertise is we can probably help with some of that and teaching some of those things, but we need to work with other organizations to do that. Provide all families with access to high quality books. You saw that stat about 61% of families in poverty that don't have those in their homes. That's a big part. The 30 million word gap that Mr. Thomas spoke to is the same kind of thing. Well, those are things we can do as a community to solve that, that we can do. Assist child care programs with high quality literacy plans and resources. Again, we understand that a lot of them are working toward those now. What we want to do is come beside them as partners and see how we can help in areas where they may have gaps. And there may be some things they can teach us as well in that process. And ensure all kindergartens have prior exposure to literacy training. There's a huge gap when you come not ready for that into kindergarten to get you caught up by that. And that's the main places we're seeing these gaps right now, is that's a lot to overcome at that time. So we see a lot of our efforts in this Knox Reads really going to that birth to kindergarten level. And again, I think a different take than what the school system has done in the past, not to build our own, but to build off of what other organizations are doing. Our second one in here is going to speak to ready graduates. As we said before, we're at about 90% graduation rate. We've kind of hovered right there, which is great in the state. But as far as a ready graduate, a graduate that has demonstrated a skill or a credential to show that they're ready to either go to work, to start a career, or to go to college out of, or military out of high school. What we're seeing is kind of what we did before, that truth in advertising, when we saw higher grades, but we didn't necessarily have that to back that up. Now we're seeing higher graduation rates across the state, but are those graduates really ready? So actually, I think this will be a quick video. This one's a little longer than the last, but I think this will tell the story well around career readiness and the value of both.
Education is core to our economy. But in order to guide our educational systems and maximize future income, we must understand the misalignment between education and our workforce. In my pursuit of higher education, I have earned 2 bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, and am working on a PhD. In total, this has cost me over $150,000. I've done all this because I believe formal education is important. Part of this belief came from seeing charts like this, presenting a correlation between higher degrees and higher income, showing on average that a person with a college degree earns far more money than the average person without a high school diploma. This perceived higher earnings for having a 4-year degree has fueled a college for all philosophy, causing educators and parents to encourage going to the university, any university, to major in anything in pursuit of future job security, social mobility, and financial prosperity. This philosophy has increased college enrollment, resulting in 66% of high school graduates in this country enrolling in higher education right after high school. That's 2 out of 3. Initially, they are deemed the successful ones. But what you won't see advertised is the reality that most drop out, and only a quarter of those that enroll will finish a bachelor's degree. Only after these few graduate do many of them start exploring careers. It is here that they discover that their degree may not have prepared them for the world of work. You may be well educated, but not every degree is direct preparation for employment. This misalignment between degrees and job skills causes half of university graduates to be underemployed in what are called gray-collar jobs, taking positions that do not require the education they have received at a cost that is more than they can afford. Conventional wisdom suggests that a university degree guarantees a higher salary. But with rising education costs, a shrinking job market, and the oversaturation of some academic majors in the workforce, this old advice is now a myth for a majority of students. The economy and the world have dramatically changed. Over the last 3 generations, we've gone from 13% of the population stepping into a college classroom to 60% attending some form of higher education. In 1960, when taking into account all jobs in the American economy, 20% required a 4-year degree or higher, 20% were technical jobs requiring skilled training, and 60% were classified as unskilled. But what's the right percentage to meet the labor market demand for tomorrow? In 2018, Harvard University predicts only 33% of all jobs will require a 4-year degree or more, while the overwhelming majority will be middle-skilled jobs, requiring technical skills and training at the credential or associate degree level. A 4-year degree may have many benefits, but think about the people you know who, from an economic perspective, inefficiently spent time and money to get a degree that perhaps they didn't really need for the career they are in. The true ratio of jobs in our economy is 1 to 7. For every occupation that requires a master's degree or more, 2 professional jobs require a university degree, and there are over half a dozen jobs requiring a 1-year certificate or 2-year degree. And each of these technicians are in very high-skilled areas that are in great demand. This ratio is fundamental to all industries. It was the same in 1950, the same in 1990, and will be the same in 2030. The hope for encouraging university education is that as the number of university-trained workers increases, the demand for their services in the workplace will increase as well. Unfortunately, this is not so. The whole pie may get bigger as the labor force and the economy grows, but the ratio will not change. The reality is, there will not be more professional jobs available within the labor market, and some professional jobs have been replaced by technology, or are being outsourced. What all this data shows is that success in the new economy is as much about acquiring the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for in-demand occupations as it is to be well educated. Both paths may work for you, but education combined with technical training is how you ultimately secure a competitive advantage in the new economy.
So they say that well. So it's what I like about this is it's not a negative toward college, nor is it a, thank you, Justin, nor is it saying, you can't have either or. It's not just all this child's good with their hands or this child's smart and should go to college. It's going to take both. And I love that last part of the video that talks about having skills combined with an education make you very marketable for the future. And we're seeing that happen more and more. I had a lunch just this week with someone who there's a nearby company coming to a nearby county, not Knox County, but that they're looking for 100 folks with a specific skill to hire before January and 300 by June. And we're talking about $40,000 to $60,000 a year jobs. And they're working with a school system to build out this pipeline to make that happen. Great jobs that they'll be able to support families fine and be contributors to the community for that. But I love that ratio too, that 1 to 2 to 7. When you look at that, when you think about the medical profession there, you have a doctor, potentially 2 nurses, and then all these other technicians that do these. All those are viable jobs to the future of Knox County. This has taken a bit of a reboot on our side to think about career and technical education in a different way. And so we've begun those. Dr. Keith Wilson is our director of career and tech education. We've begun having conversations with counselors. I've been working at things like apprenticeships and that sort of thing. But here's the big dream for Knox Advances that will take the entire community. Imagine every high school with both of these existing at the same time. An advanced academic program like what we see, probably IB is what you think about, West High School, that kind of program, coupled with a career-ready pathway. And that could be anything from combining architecture with construction that would exist in a school that also had an IB or an AP kind of focus so that students could go back and forth between those. That's like as the video spoke to, someone who has both skill and a high academic ability that's very marketable for the future. It's something we can obtain, and so we won't have schools that have and those that have not, or you have to transfer to certain school for certain things. We always want choice for our families. But at the same time, we want to be able to make sure we have one of those schools that offer both of those in every community. Some of our schools have one or the other. Very few of ours have both of those operating very strongly. And so that's a goal for ours to get to there. But we can't do that alone either. So I've kind of talked about the first few points. But one of those is it's a different ask of our industry partners instead of just, now we have advisory groups and things like that. But what we want to do is potentially get to the place where we won't offer the same programs everywhere, but we have certain programs that get very specialized, and we ask industry partners to adopt that school to be part of it, not to write a check, but to give us internships, to give us externships, to provide teachers opportunities to be there, work-based learning opportunities, so that every student gets a very different experience. So it's very experiential, also with very rigorous academics. And if we're going to produce Knox County students that are going to be able to contribute to that, we're going to need industry's help in that. We've had some initial conversations with the chamber, and they feel very strongly about us being able to get that done. The other thing that the superintendent talked about, where you'll hear EPSOs, early post-secondary opportunities, when we talk about ready graduates, no longer just getting a graduation and having a GPA are going to be enough. There are now requirements to be a ready graduate about earning industry certification while a student and or earning college credit or post-secondary credits while you are a student. This has been coming for a while. It's now official and it counts in our accountability. So a lot of that is partnering with folks like Pellissippi and UT, Roane State, the local TCAT, those kinds of organizations that we've had conversations with, but formalizing those agreements so that students, instead of just earning high school credits, are also earning those college credits or those career credentials that they need to. Again, this is a bit of a reboot on some of the things that we need to do and a little bit of the retraining of our heads, because a lot of us come from a generation where it was kind of college or nothing, and we're saying college and. You've got to be able to have both of those to be successful. So that's kind of at the crux of what you'll see in Knox Advances. Knox Reads is really going to kind of be a birth to fifth grade focus as we move forward for the next couple of years, trying to really shore literacy up and achievement. And then the 612 will be this Knox Advances, because the other part of this is we have to get into our middle schools with exposure of meaningful programs academically, and then also meaningful programs around the career and tech education introduction. We can do those introductory courses then, which allow them to earn more credentials as they get into high school. Final is one we'll speak to is Knox Supports. So if you think about, again, birth to fifth grade being elementary or kind of those grades, their focus, when we look at Knox Reads and we look at Knox Advances for 612, Knox Supports kind of undergirds the whole thing. This is for the students who need something else, who need us to stand in the gap and provide extra support so they can be ready. One of the stats we look at, and Mr. Thomas spoke to a minute ago, is reducing the percentage of chronically absent students to 10%. We're currently at about 16.4%. And so that would take, as he said before, 9,700 students are chronically absent during the school year, the equivalent of missing 2 days per month. In order for us to close that to 10% by 2025, 620 students need to have better attendance, missing no more than 17 days of school per year. So again, it's a little deceiving, kind of like the graduation rate. High graduation rate, but readiness to do something is a little lower. You know, we're hovering around that 50%, which is still really high in the state, let me say that. But when you look at this, you're going 95% attendance rates, but when we look at 9,700 kids that miss that, you know, hit that 17-day threshold, you know, that student's kind of already behind the 8 ball before they get started. Why is that important when we talk about things? We're, again, in education. We want academic outcomes. We want to have students succeed. I'm going to, again, sorry, but these videos say a lot, so I'm going to quickly try to show you this with Justin's help, show you why this matters. We're going to talk about brain builders and how the brain develops at an early age. Some of the trainings that Mr. Thomas spoke to a second ago we talked about here, but this is interesting as well. And again, as we go out and talk to folks, we'll have specific asks of certain groups and not share all three, but the video that's pertinent.
Science tells us that the experiences we have in the first years of our lives actually affect the physical architecture of the developing brain. This means that brains aren't just born, they're also built over time based on our experiences. Just as a house needs a sturdy foundation to support the walls and roof, a brain needs a good base to support all future development. Positive interactions between young children and their caregivers literally build the architecture of the developing brain. Building a sturdy foundation in the earliest years provides a good base for a lifetime of good mental function and better overall health. So just how is a solid brain foundation built and maintained in a developing child? One way is through what brain experts call serve and return interactions. Imagine a tennis match between a caregiver and a child, but instead of hitting a ball back and forth across a net, various forms of communication pass between the two. From eye contact to touch, from singing to simple games like peekaboo. These interactions, repeated throughout a young person's developing years, are the bricks that build a healthy foundation for all future development. But another kind of childhood experience shapes brain development too, and that's stress. Good kinds of stress, like meeting new people or studying for a test, are healthy for development because they prepare kids to cope with future challenges. Another kind of stress, called toxic stress, is bad for brain development. If a child is exposed to serious, ongoing hardships like abuse and neglect, and he has no other caregiver in his life to provide support, the basic structures of his developing brain may be damaged. Without a sturdy foundation to properly support future development, he is at risk for a lifetime of health problems, development issues, even addiction. It's possible to fix some of the damage of toxic stress later on, but it's easier, more effective, and less expensive to build solid brain architecture in the first place. One of the things that sturdy brain architecture supports is the development of basic emotional and social skills, an important group of skills which scientists call executive function and self-regulation can be thought of like air traffic control in the child's mental airspace. Think of a young child's brain as the control tower at a busy airport. All those planes landing and taking off and all of the support systems on the ground simultaneously demand the controller's attention to avoid a crash. It's the same with a young child learning to pay attention, plan ahead and remember, and follow lots of rules. Like all of us, kids have to react to things happening in the world around them, while also dealing with worries, temptations, and obligations on their minds. As these demands for attention pile up, air traffic control helps a child regulate the flow of information, prioritize tasks, and above all, find ways to manage stress and avoid mental collisions along the way. Having this ability is a necessity for positive and level mental health. Developing effective air traffic control, overcoming toxic stress, and building solid brain architecture are things kids can't do on their own. And since strong societies are made up of healthy, contributing individuals, it's up to us as a community to make sure all young people have the kinds of nurturing experiences they need for positive development. To build better futures, we need to build better brains.
So I think you'll see from there too, you know, this is probably an area for us that we've seen the largest growth in the school and some of the biggest impact. This is not something we probably dealt with at a large scale, probably even 5 to 10 years ago, but it's having, you know, we've kind of kept it a secret, it's having a huge effect in our schools. And the society's different, students are different, challenges students face are very different. We see that in some behavioral situations that we have in some of our elementary schools. We see that in some of just the ways that students process or can't process due to these things. And we're seeing it take have a big effect for us for the reading and for all the advancements that we want to make through college readiness and those sorts of things. So we understand mental health, eliminating disparities as the superintendent has spoken to are going to be critical for us to continue to make that success for all of our students. So here's some things that we will seek partnerships and work toward over the coming years, but build a systematic way for each community to quickly identify and locate students who miss school, as well as pre-planned network of resources for them to support when the issue develops. We have to be proactive in that area. We have to make sure we're being efficient and all of our systems are speaking together so that the kids aren't falling through the cracks for that. But we also need help from the community to do that, and organizations that have a lot more connections to home. Mobilize community to decrease discipline by providing supports for root causes. Once we find, lots of times, you know, we know that students act out or don't achieve because of these reasons. Invite parents to partner with their student school for supports. Mobilize the community for root causes of discipline. Let's say I hit that one, Ray, sorry. And ensure feeder patterns that have historically underperforming, that they can make measurable long-term strides with academic success. What we see in lots of those places, it's not a matter of their teaching any, the teaching is not up to par or the leadership is not up to par. What we see is it's the increased amount of these challenges that are faced in schools of high poverty. And can't be ignored, and we have to make sure we're being very efficient when we work on those things. So Knox Support will continue to reach out to community partners to work on those things. We have begun some of this work. These are a list of some folks that we've already had beginning conversations with and or are scheduled to have conversations with soon to talk to them about their part in that. So again, I think what you'll see with this overall is that our goal is not to launch something brand new that we can go, you know, chase money for to put. What we're trying to do is be more compact in the areas that we think we can have the biggest impact moving forward and positioning ourselves as the school system to the greater community to solve these problems. Because if we're able to do this, and we do really believe that we will be able to do that in 3 to 5 years, we can leave the state. And these are the obstacles that are in our way of getting that done. We have great teachers, we have great principals, we have great leaders, and our goal now is how do we get the greater community, besides just us having a meeting, but really some actionable steps. And where we're at in our committees, we have principals on committees, we have some central office folks on committees, and we're beginning to have those conversations with community organizations. And what we're talking about right now is what is the specific ask? You know, we can show the video, but what are we asking this organization to do in their area of expertise where they can partner with us? And hopefully they're going to tell us the same thing. Here's some things we can do you didn't think of. But again, I think it's a different posture from us. Instead of we have the answer, we need to partner to figure this answer because it's bigger than just us.
Wow, that was a lot.
Yeah. So we're happy to take questions or pass out coffee if you're tired.
I have a question. First off, I just want to commend you both for the work you're doing here in the school board. I think from a commission perspective, it's helpful to understand where you are, where you're going, what are your goals and objectives. These are things that don't often, translate over to our side of the world, and so I appreciate that's the whole point of today, and I appreciate that you've given us a presentation. I hope you'll be able to send this to us as well electronically so we can review it again and maybe some of the other information you presented today. My question is, do you all put together a State of the Union or an annual report in how you're measuring these of,
goals are great unless you measure it and manage it and see how you're doing, it doesn't really mean much. So do you do an annual report or an annual presentation does that happen regularly now? And if so, when?
Once upon a time, there were state of the education, I think, meetings, but what we're looking at right now maybe is to have, this is a call to action, and we want the community involved. We want to partner with the community. We've been told, hey, sometimes y'all are not the best partners. We want to change that. So as John said, we're going to work with these agencies to be a better partner ourselves. So we're thinking about some type of a meeting here after the first of the year where we can talk about these things publicly and invite folks to come. So basically it'll be something similar, I think, to what you're talking about.
Will you measure these goals on an annual basis?
Oh, yes.
And when will those start?
Yes.
And when will we get the first sort of?
That'll be part of the strategic plan that we're developing, and there'll be metrics along with what we've talked about. So we'll know and we'll be able to measure the progress we're making along the way in terms of reading proficiency, ready graduates, the early post-secondary opportunities, like how many students are involved in dual enrollment classes, things of that nature. So, and we're already seeing some progress. I know it's not going to come out in the report card that's coming out next week, but we know this year, actually, we saw a little bit of an increase in ACT scores. Our district average is 21.1. We know now that it's 21.4 this past year, so 3/10 doesn't sound like much, but we actually had more students taking the ACT this year than before. So sometimes when more students take it, you don't see much of an increase. So 0.3 of a point I feel like is really significant in terms of that increase. So we're already seeing, I think, some results of what John and CNI folks and our great teachers and principals. I just can't say that enough. And I know the board's really concerned about this. We're going to have to pay our teachers better. And we're looking at ways to try to make that happen. I think it was like I signed sick leave transfer request because sick leave is transferable across the state, and I think there were 48 out of 60 or so that went right next door. So we lost positions, people just going to Oak Ridge, Alcoa, Maryville City, these other counties. They come in and kind of cherry pick our best because they don't have they're not really large systems, so they can come in. They don't have as many vacancies, but they can come in and pick some of our best folks. So that's going to be part of the strategic plan too, looking for ways. What we hope, we always are good at asking for money. What we're trying to do right now is work within what we're given, reprioritize where we can to do some of the things that we're doing, and hopefully get the community again behind us so that people say, hey, yeah, we want you to do this. You need more money. One thing for us to ask for more money and not be able to say what you're going to do with it. But I think it's something else if the community gets behind and says, hey, the school system, needs more money. We're willing to pay more money. I mean, we need more counselors. We need more mental health folks to deal with the issues that, that John talked about in that last little video there. So, kids come to us with lots of challenges, and we don't always have enough folks to address all those challenges. And it all gets back down to relationships. So that's one of the things with positive culture is just building those relationships, our teachers and our students, our principals, us in the central office. I think John and his folks have done a great job. We're trying to get the central office out of central office and more into schools. He didn't talk about this, but we got micro teams that are out in the schools made up of our grade level directors and a reading person, a math person, special ed person. And so we're making sure we're getting out and about and helping support our schools, our teachers, and our principals. So, again, that wasn't part of this presentation. But long answer to your question, there will be metrics, and we will measure how we're going to, and look forward to sharing the strategic plan with the county commission as well.
When do you expect the strategic plan?
Our goal is to get a draft to the board December, and give the board a few weeks to look at, analyze, assess, tell us what's not in there that they want to be in there, and then approval process maybe could be by January. So we hope to, by the second week of December, I think, have a draft to the board.
And help educate me, other school board members here. does it work like you get done with the school year in May and everybody's taking their tests and you know who's graduated? Is it theoretically possible to sort of every August know your footprint for the last school year since you're on a fun fiscal year as well? Or is this, things happen all the time with different testing and different levels of things that you would measure or happen all year long? They don't all sort of wrap it up.
Able to deliver on the state testing. So that would assume that the state is able to give us the test results back in a timely manner, and they have not proven themselves able to do that. So
you know some of the metrics, but you don't know all the metrics. They may come in at different times throughout the year.
Right.
But the Tennessee, when does the Tennessee report card come out? I mean, are you
Next
familiar
week.
with that you can come out and you can look by district, you can look by school, and there are a lot of metrics on that.
And you said that comes out next week?
It's next week.
Okay.
December 3rd. is when
Okay,
it's
so
gonna
they
be
take several months, obviously, after the end of the school year and the fiscal year to
Right.
kind of process.
And a lot of the data there is going to be based on 2017 graduates, not even the 2018 graduates.
very,
But-
very delayed.
Okay, but that's a good piece
It's a
of
metric.
information and a good metric to
And-
look
and
at. So
just-
will you make sure that this committee gets that as well?
And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We often hear that we lose some of our finest teachers to the surrounding counties. Do we have any hard data on how many we lose a year?
How many we lose? Yes. And I was just looking at the sick leave transfers I've signed since July. Based on that number,
If y'all have that.
And do we do exit interviews to know why they've left? Do we have data
We
to
do.
show, out of 50 interviews, 48 said it was pay, or?
we do exit interviews, and some of it's around pay, some of it, job relocate, spouse relocate somewhere else. But obviously, I think I would have to think those that are more we lose to our adjoining counties are really based more on better salaries and better benefit packages than what we offer. And we're the third largest district, I guess, in the state, but when it comes to salary and benefits, we're probably in the 30s, I guess, in terms of.
That information, though, if there's.
That's only been in the last year that we've had exit interviews.
That's
Prior to
correct.
that,
They didn't exist.
they did not exist.
Okay.
But as an example, like West High School, we train IB teachers. There's a lot of money that goes into that. There was a teacher that had decided to offer IB economics, got trained in it. 2 months into the school year, got an offer from Oak Ridge, and by driving to Oak Ridge, got paid a significant amount of money.
it's 10 to
Weston was
12,000
left
more.
without an economics teacher trained to be able to teach the course.
But isn't there a commitment that they had to do with IB to stay a certain amount of time at that school?
And I don't know what happened with that, but I mean,
Supposed to, but I don't think that's all.
but that's just, that's just one that I personally.
But I think to
saw
Commissioner
happen.
Smith's point, it'd be great to see what the data and the number is and the exit interview data to really sort of justify that, hey, this is a massive, issue.
No, one other thing though, is to point on that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, if you're gonna stay on that subject, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I mean, when you look at it, like Maryville and Oak Ridge, I mean, there is one high school there. So you're
Right.
not having hundreds of people go. But I mean, I know, and this, once again, I saw as my kids were going to West High School, the West High School principal went to become the Maryville High School principal. He cherry-picked a lot of teachers that year out of West because he knew he'd worked with and, our reputation. And you've got to have the openings that come up. So you're not going to have just, 20 English teachers in a year going. But as they have openings, it's very lucrative to our teachers to go there.
John, the birth decay development of the brain is very important for the process of education once we get the child in our possession. I know you're in the strategic stage there, and you mentioned daycares and churches. What other avenues are you all looking at? Also parenting, I guess, parents. But any other avenues that you can mention that you're going to be?
Sure, I think, Great Schools Partnership already has some pretty good, they do the teachers, or readers are leaders, parents as teachers, are two good programs. Again, they're smaller, but everywhere there's a need and a desire to continue to expand on those. I think they've done some good program development there. I think, reaching out to our Head Starts, reaching out to our child care providers like Boys and Girls Club and YMCA. So, again, there are lots of those places where families already have great trust built in organizations. We don't need to compete with organizations. What we need to do is get together. And again, I'm not discounting what they do educationally either. We need to have conversations around where can we help, where can they help us learn, where can we do this kind of, we've seen some of that with our summer programming. It was very expensive for us to do summer programming. You've seen a reduction in that. Well, those kids are going to other organizations that they trust and they do. How do we sit at the table with them and have conversations around, you know, we don't want to be the activities planners and those sorts of things. You all do a great job with that, but how can we have a conversation about where they might want us to help plug in or not plug in and do some things? So,
Like offering training materials. And
yes, or
guidance.
exactly, training, and again, and they may have some of those things that we learn too and say, I think to Bob's point, getting everyone at the table to have those and do kind of assessment of needs assessment of where those are and where might we be able to help and where might they, you know, ask for help in those areas. And again, we're very encouraged because we've heard some conversations around some, you know, folks wanting to have those conversations.
Just like we got Boys and Girls Club, I know that we had a conversation with them, and you know, well, we want to be more than just a vendor. Right now, they're a vendor for us. Hey, we want to be a partner with you. So I think a lot of these organizations feel that way, but I'm not so sure the invitation, you know, has gone out in a way that make them feel like, hey, they do want our help, and they're willing to help us help them. So I'm really hopeful back to when we launch that, you know, that it's going to be from our perspective here that people are going to see that, hey, we want to be transparent with this. We want to tell people where we are, and we want help, and it's going to take all of us. It's not just Knox County Schools. So, but so far the partnerships, I think people are showing a willingness to help us out. So.
It seems like this presentation is geared a lot towards early education and high school education. Middle school education is a very vital crossroads for a lot of kids. And I heard you mention something about fifth grade in there, but what's the emphasis going to be in middle school?
Yes, so there's two pieces to that. You know, I'll say this first. The reason you see a lot of that is we have Knox County and Knox County schools have a very good track record once you start getting into fourth, fifth, and beyond as far as producing students that are ready and achieve really high levels. But you're right, middle school can be kind of a forgotten land. So our plan in this as part of Knox Advances is thinking about a student in those 8 years, 6 through 12. And there are plenty of programs, like we see things like Pre-AP, which is a new College Board program. Even this year, it'll actually be on the board agenda for this month for us, is training for 54 middle school teachers, 5 from every middle school, to go through this pre-college College Board AP training, which helps give them some ability to have a scale of what an honors class looks like and what it should be in training and development there. We haven't really had a focal point there. Same thing with career and tech education. There are beginning level classes that we teach freshmen, like intro classes to digital design and photography, something like that. We can move those STEM class, those types of basics of engineering, principles of engineering, that we can move into those 8th grade years and have exposure for students, even kind of their encore rotations, not to replace band and chorus and all that. That's still an option for students, but there are some students we can go ahead and rotate that back into, and that takes alignment for us to get the middle school aligned to the feeder high school. If they're going to have this college and career ready pathway that's going to have this for them when they get there, a lot of our schools are about 75% pure kids who go from the middle to high. We have some that aren't, but a lot of them are. That should be an easy connection for us to make so that we could potentially even share teachers or share program knowledge as we try to build that in the 612.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you speak to the issue of our existing strategic plan that a lot of time, energy, and effort went into developing those priorities after a year-long conversation with the community? How it
We're operating under the one that's about 3 years
Years
old.
old, the one that.
The 5-year plan.
The 5-year
from-
plan, yeah, and how that will then be communicated to the community in reference to the development process that you had, because that was very exhaustive.
Meaning, like, how's it been working?
Are you talking about the plan we're working
No, I
on right
think-
now?
No,
or
the new
one
one.
from?
The new.
The new
new
one.
one.
We just
I'm
had the
talking about
community
new one.
meetings on
Like
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
where you were, where you started, where
where
you
we
are
are
now,
now,
what are
so
your
that the
priorities to be,
commissioners will understand.
to
Yes, we
integrate
started-
this. I don't think a lot of people may need to be brought to speed on that.
Yeah, last January, I believe, we started with having we had 9 community meetings in each board member district to get feedback and input from folks that attended it. They weren't extremely well attended, but there were folks there. And then we also had online. You could go online and make suggestions, which we did have a lot. I don't know the exact number. I don't know if you know, Carly, but several thousand people got online. So we took all of the suggestions and then tried to put them into categories, and then those categories we took further and put them under the three major, whether it was increase student achievement or build a positive culture, eliminate disparities, to put them under those goals for us. Yes.
Online comments.
Well,
And
but-
the
that were
meetings.
probably.
Yeah.
And board discussion.
So there was a product from that, and then I think the boards, this really came about with the board looking at the product of that, and then really challenging them to kind of think outside the box. And so they've spent a lot of time working on this, and really kind of encapsulated kind of both what the board was looking for, and also including those community comments.
And then that goes back to you, because they have to kind of finalize the product before they
That's
could put the ways of measuring it
Right.
in there. So
Okay.
that's been, and that goes back into the superintendent's contract and how he will be
And review,
evaluated.
yeah.
Okay, great.
And-
So look
All
forward
that
to,
ties
we'll look
together.
forward to seeing that.
And Larson, we are currently operating under a 5-year plan that was developed several years ago. So the metrics are in that plan, and the 75% number, there's basically a chart that over 5 years, you're increasing proficiency to get to that 75% proficiency.
Excellent.
So we are operating under a similar metric right now, so,
We'll look forward to seeing the new plan. Eyes forward, right?
yeah, yes.
Good. Any other questions?
Randy.
Thank you. Oh, Randy, you got
One
it.
more.
I just want to thank Bob and John. I think this is a very good plan with a very good target and focus for where society's leading us. And thank you all for being ahead of it, taking action.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Does an excellent job. Gotta give them.
Two little bits of housekeeping I wanted to just bring up during our final minutes here. First and foremost, this is not a governing board, so we don't have to approve minutes, but minutes are taken and these are sent to us. Has the last meeting already been sent to? It has been. So just know that, keep an eye on that if you have questions about what we've gone over, or just want to go back and review them. We don't have to approve them or anything like that, but they will be issued on an ongoing basis. And then setting forth our December meeting agenda, which is the 19th. Same time and place, same bat channel. We will be looking to our leadership in the school system for a Budget 101 presentation, basically educating us on where does our taxpayer money, where is it spent and why, and what are the reasons and places that we invest in education. And then I have confirmed that Marianne Dursky from the Tennessee Department of Education will be joining us on a presentation of BEP funding. Why and how do they calculate that, and answering any questions.
We're gonna all understand it at the end.
We will do our best.
Good luck.
I'll do our best to talk to her
Government, they
about
don't
how
want
to,
us to understand.
how to give us an overview of that. So those will be our December
What's the
big
date of that?
picture, 19.
Larson, will that have a county component too? Will Chris be here to break down the county side of funding?
Yes, I've asked Chris to do that as well, and so that, I anticipate that meeting may run a little long as well, because that's a
Especially
lot
if
of.
you want to figure out the BEP formula.
That might take a week. I don't think that's
I
gonna
would
work.
say
We got
that,
now.
and the priority of that, the priority is sort of Budget 101 for the school system and helping us understand that and ask questions for that, and then also doing our best to slice away at the state, because we don't want to spend all of our time worrying about how they do what they do.
Will it be necessary to have her speak first, given she's traveling here? Or is she going to be?
I'm not sure, but I'll bring that up and.
I think it would be
give
good to have her speak
Probably would
first.
help anyway. I think it might help.
Okay.
Hear
Well, I
from,
just don't
to
want
hear
to keep
from
her
her.
here if she doesn't have to stay for
Okay.
Because
the
the night will be
entire.
long.
Okay, I'll check that out. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? I think that's a lot for December, but,
That's
Yeah.
a lot.
okay. We have not set forth any ideas for January, February, although February may be related to operational things if that times out well, but just be thinking about what, or no, we don't have a
We don't
January
have a
meeting.
January.
A February meeting, so we don't have
Which might
anything
be-
on the agenda for
Which
that
is
yet,
big,
but,
right.
but just be thinking about that if you'd like to bring that to the table in December. And the last on our agenda is just
Any other business?
Everybody have a good Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Terry, Terry did run these. If you want to take a copy, those are the legislative priorities that we established last year when we met. And so we don't have to do anything with them today, but just so you'll know, and I think there was some discussion, Susan could shed more light on that, at the Tennessee School Boards Association about this year limiting it to just like 2 or 3 things that we really want to concentrate on putting forth in conjunction with commission and the school board to put forth to the legislature, that we're all on the same page.
Has the legislative body approached you all yet about how we normally have a
Lunch.
That would be Stephanie Welch
At
back
Christmas
there.
or not?
Stephanie, do you want to update them on what you've done about the legislative? Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack.
No, this is actually
And
really
we
good,
have a
'cause the question is
legislative
2019 that'll be
affairs
coming in,
next
what are the priorities
Right.
going
Well,
forward? and
well,
are we
but we
going
were
to-
asking about the lunch that we usually have with the legislators.
Right, but
Which is something that
Stephanie's-
Representative Smith used to
Right.
coordinate,
Right.
and
Yes.
obviously that's not happening. So I have had some correspondence with Bob and his team and with Terry Hill, and today spoke with Rick Staples. We have a phone call tomorrow, and we're looking at potentially doing something in very early January. They return to Nashville on January 8th. We're kind of putting this together pretty quickly, so, yes, sir.
On the education side, or I'm also looking at this from county commission.
We usually do it together.
Well,
Well, there's
well,
two
we
separate
meet-
ones.
we used to meet together.
an
Last
hour
year,
and then
they
they
wanted
meet
us to
separate.
be
Well,
separate.
Yeah.
this is looking a little different this year after talking to Stephanie, so maybe she can tell you a little bit what.
So
looking
it's
for.
still under evolution right now, because at this point it just felt like, who's going to pull everybody together? So I volunteered and said, hey, education is probably one of the biggest priorities that all of these elected bodies are interested in talking about. So it will be everybody together. I know that Representative Smith last year had decided to sort of have 2 separate, and maybe with a little bit of overlap. I'm not sure exactly how it was designed, but I have a lot of trust in our elected leaders that we can all meet together at the same time, and with a good facilitated conversation and strong agenda. I think it would be good for everybody to be in the same room together, and actually City Council will be invited this year as well. So it will be a legislative breakfast. The primary focus will be on public education in Knox County. I think that Representative Staples is interested in adding some other topics as well, and I would assume that others might be as well. So does that help? Is everybody available on January 4th? That's what we're looking at right now. But I have to talk with Representative Staples.
Yeah.
Okay.
No?
Well,
Okay. So don't let that distract you.
Stephanie, do you know
We'll
whenever
figure
our
out.
local delegation will pick their leader, or have they yet?
They have not yet, and my understanding is that won't happen until they return in January, and their first day back is January 8th. Yeah, so, good.
thank you very much
Thanks.
for the update.
So, Larson, you guys, when we were at TSBA, we met with class. So class is the lobbyist who lobbies on behalf of the 4 large school systems in Nashville. So that's what Patty was referring to when we met with them. They talked about trying to, and what they do is they try to get buy-in from each of the 4 districts on what they will lobby for. And so those conversations will be going on, I guess even now. Jennifer Owen is having conversations every Friday on a conference call, so they'll be talking about which legislative priorities should be focused on for the year.
Out of the list that you passed out.
Well, that is
That's
the
last
past
year.
year.
This is last
To give
year.
you an idea, Terry was gracious enough to print it for us, but typically, kind of this, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, typically our legislative priorities kind of started within this group, and then we kind of focused on what we thought as 2 bodies we could work towards, and then we voted on it as a board and then sent it to you as commission. Is that right, Randy?
That's exactly
And then
right.
you all could vote to support what we did or not support what we did, but it typically came out of this, and for you guys, 'cause we forget to say this stuff.
Don't let it say.
Yeah, we usually had a lunch with the legislators every year since I've been on the board. And so it was just a time to meet and to talk and to chat and to kind of get on the same page or hear each other out. So this year we're a little bit behind, and Stephanie volunteered to head some of that up, but,
So, and here's two things you may need to know, because the legislative affairs with the county is next December the 5th at 3. And the state association has set the priorities for the county association. So we will send the email out with that
You're speaking of
information
the 95 county.
The 95 county.
Yeah, TCC.
Yeah, so we'll forward those. as
In the
well.
past, we have met, and they have given us, they usually give us 2, we always take 3, priorities that we as a county commission want to set forth in legislation at the state.
Okay.
And the school board did theirs too, and typically we would pass a resolution of county commissions supporting their objectives.
Okay.
But there were 2 sets of,
Priorities.
because, I mean, education is very important, but there are
Right,
other
there's
responsibilities
other-
as county commissioners that we have to be
Right.
So that's
responsible
all
for.
essentially happening, the conversations are happening this month, but that will all come to fruition in January as they start the new session.
Right, but you've got to give them guidance well before.
Yeah, and we in the past, when we're trying to focus so that we have a pretty focused conversation, because there's so many ways you could go. So that we talk about, okay, these are the most important things. Like, for instance, last year kindergarten portfolio was the issue last year, and the other one,
Was it response to intervention teachers?
I believe it
It was
was.
on here.
It was
I don't
either,
think
yes,
so.
I don't see the
yes.
kindergarten.
So are you saying
And it
that?
was anti-voucher.
Yes,
Yeah,
and the
that's what-
vouchers.
Okay, so those were last year, so.
So, and vouchers is going to be a big one, so I think that definitely needs to be a topic of conversation, and,
I think class is trying to get all 4 areas on the same page as far as testing. Shelby County is really pushing back against 10 Ready. Knox County, when we were at the TSBA, we probably aligned more closely with Shelby County in that meeting as far as our thing. Unfortunately, Hamilton County has some people, Shelby County, Hamilton County has some hires that wants to continue to support 10 Ready testing, so we're going to try to be working with Hamilton County and pull them into because all 4 areas have to agree.
So, but essentially what you're saying is those conversations amongst the school board and the members and the class and all that, that's all happening right now. You all will sort of pick your top 3 things.
well, but I think we as Knox County need to talk with our legislators about what we think is important, because I'm not sure we're going to get to an agreement with Hamilton County. So the issue is, the majority of counties in Tennessee this year at the convention and last year, probably 95% of counties, of people, wanted to be able to offer the ACT suite of testing as an alternative to TN Ready for high schools. So ACT is the standard. That's what we as a county, that's what throughout the nation look at as college ready. So we have this, it's proven. Yes, there are issues sometimes, but probably 99% of the time, there are not. So what school board members across the state want is the opportunity to use that versus TN Ready for our high school students. And Hamilton County is not on board with that. So if they're not on board with that, class may not be able to take that and lobby on our behalf. But that's something that we still need to
advocate for that
with our
As a board,
legislators.
we-
And that's the kind of thing, they're not going to hear that, unless we tell them. So I think that would be another important
Can I
thing.
ask you a structural question? You all have this lobbyist, that's the big 4. You all also have an individual lobbyist?
No.
Just for Knox County? You don't? Okay.
Does Knox County have one?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and they come visit us every year. They're here. And so if you haven't heard their presentation, we can let you know when
Yeah,
they
please let us
come.
know when that
They were
is.
here in September, but it's helpful they are really in touch with what we're looking for. So it's helpful to have them on the
Has
ground there.
Hamilton County given you reasons for their?
Well, we know the reason.
Let's sidebar that,
Yeah.
because otherwise we'll be here till 9.
Yeah.
With a much bigger discussion.
Yeah, you don't mind.
I'll tell you after.
I will say though, please include us from commission, and really all the commissioners, on anything that you feel like we should know more about. I see we're starting to get more emails and more information about other committees or things that are going on. I think it's just good to keep everybody in the same loop as we work together, so. Is there any other business that we can quickly discuss or accomplish
Thank
today?
you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you all,
We
yes.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Till,
Teachboro
19th of December.
Teachboro Marathon.